So I can see Nina in and Nina and Johan at the moment are they're in Gansbaai at a crocodile sanctuary, I'm going to call it, called Africanus. And Nina, I'm just trying to look through your window where the water is and see if there's any crocodiles swimming, but I kind of doubt that there are. I think they're all lazily
So
lying in the
we've
sun.
actually got one laying right above me, and one of my colleagues is going to get him to come into the water. So hopefully we'll see one quite soon.
Oh, that would be amazing. Okay, super.
We'll try
Okay,
our
so
best.
fantastic. I'm going to introduce Nina Wickenden.
Great.
Nina has a passion for animals that began on a farm in the Clan Karoo, where she developed hands-on experience with both domestic and wild creatures. From rescuing birds to caring for a blind alpaca, I've got to get my tongue around that one, her affinity for animals has always shone through. After excelling in science and sports during high school, she expanded her knowledge of marine life in Gansbaai, even dissecting a dolphin for her marine biology studies. Now a crocodile tour guide at Africanos, she embraces the challenge of working with these formidable reptiles. Wow, look at that crocodile behind her. Isn't that beautiful? It's amazing. I visited 2 days ago and I wasn't lucky enough to see that crocodile swimming, so it's very special. That's totally distracted me and probably our audience as well. So yeah, Nina embraces the challenge of working with these formidable reptiles. Outside of work, she represents Overberg in darts and pool at national competitions. Amazing, Nina.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Then just from my side, also a very warm welcome here by Africaners. So here by Africaners, we are the African Crocodile Experience, and we are home to 2 large Nile crocodiles, also known as the African crocodile. So the reason for their name, Africa's second largest worldwide, with the saltwater crocodile then being the largest, which is thankfully native to Australia, where everything seems to be a bit unnecessarily larger and more dangerous. However, when I'm talking about large, these guys can reach a length of 6 meters long. The largest one that has ever been found was 20 feet and 3 inches, and he weighed almost 1,200 kilograms. They can easily weigh up to anything between 750 kilograms and a ton. So, but back to the boys that we have here by us, and I do still refer to them as boys because they're only 15 years old at the moment. So they've got a life expectancy out in the wild of about 45, 50 years old. However, in captivity, they can actually live twice as long because then, of course, we take very good care of them and the outside factors that endanger them are limited or eliminated. So then we are looking at about 70, 75 years old. However, the oldest recorded Nile crocodile is still alive to this day. His name is Henry. If you ever find yourself in KwaZulu-Natal, go visit Crockworld. That is where he is living. He lives in captivity. So Henry just turned 124 years old in December. Henry is about 4.8 meters long and he weighs about 700 kilograms. But back to the guys, we can actually maybe go up top and then I can talk as we go. So the 2 guys that we have here by us, we have got Scarface. Scarface is our largest boy as well as our alpha because he is the largest and he's also a bit darker in skin color. And that is one of the 2 reasons or 2 ways how they choose amongst themselves, how they choose the alpha. The older you are, the bigger you are. And then also sometimes darker skin could also be kind of to say how healthy he is. But the one that we just witnessed, lovely in front of the window, put quite a show on for us, that is Marley. He's our second largest boy. Marley is about 4.2 meters in length and he weighs about 450 kilograms. Scarface is about 4.4 meters long and weighs about 550 kilograms. So as you guys can also probably imagine, the crocodile is a carnivore, meaning he is a meat eater. So we are looking at anything from birds, fish, mammals, reptiles. They'll even eat each other if they are hungry enough or aggressive enough. And then, of course, also, I don't like to say it, but people, given the chance. There's about 24 different crocodile species in the world, and 8 of them are known to actually go out of their way to hunt down humans and enjoy the hunt. Here we go. So, surprisingly, for such a large animal, actually, wait, maybe let me first mention that they are very lazy animals and they are opportunistic hunters. So, they sleep about 17 hours a day. What a lovely life. They sleep about 17 hours a day. And of course, they are cold-blooded, so they try to save as much energy as possible. And by doing so, they love basking in the sun. Of course, they are very weather dependent and weather sensitive. So when there's a bit of sun, they do like to just spend their days basking. So surprisingly, for such a large animal, depends on how you look at it. They can eat much, but they also, in some senses, don't eat much. So for such a large animal, they only need about 50 full meals a year. And by full meals, what I mean is in a sitting, he can eat up to half his body's weight in meat. So Scarface, being about 500 kilos, can eat anything between 200 and 250 kilograms of meat in a sitting. And then, of course, as you guys can see, he's laying completely still. The only thing of him that is busy moving is his nostrils. So good indication that he is alive. So they only use about 30 to 40% of the calories that they take in, the rest, and then that 30 to 40 is usually used to hunt. The rest gets stored into body fat, and about 80% of that fat then gets stored in the tail, which is also then how you can easily determine the health of a crocodile by just looking at his tail and how thick it is. And as you guys can probably see, our crocodiles are very well fed and very well looked after, which also allows him to be very, very lazy. So because they store so much fat, it also allows them to go very, very long without eating. So anything between the months of May and August, they go into a hibernation-like state, of course, where he is pretty much, this is how you will see him. However, in South Africa, our winters are quite cold. So then what will happen is we have got special UV lights where they then go lay under to go seek heat. Because unfortunately, if he does not have heat, they can get pneumonia. And also, so that very thick, lovely tail, that is also where the majority of his swimming action comes from. I don't know if we can see from the footage, but his two back feet are webbed and not his two front feet. So those two back feet he can use for swimming. However, the majority of the swimming action actually comes from his tail. There we go. And then any health issues, of course, this is a very strong, majestic, prehistoric-like animal. However, they are not immune to everything. So they don't really have any sicknesses. It's just the way their blood works. However, they are prone to infections. Of course, when they bite each other, it's not just a little scratch wound. It is quite the wound, because these guys have one of the strongest biting forces in the animal kingdom at a whopping 5,000 psi. Their biting force is twice that of a great white shark, or if we are looking at the lions, the land animals, their biting force is 4 times that of a lion. So of course, when they bite each other or when they are busy hunting, they are prone to infections. And then of course also bacterias, fungal infections. If there's toxins in the water or toxins in the air, it can cause quite the problem, like skin problems, respiratory problems, and also skin problems, of course. So they do love the dirty water, but unfortunately, if it is contaminated, then it can become quite a problem. So, okay, so yes, and then also, sorry, just a fact that I almost forgot about, his stomach is actually not that big.
which is why he doesn't really need to eat that much. So his stomach is about the size of a soccer ball. And their stomachs, it's not just one large chamber. They've actually got two chambers in their stomach. So the one chamber is where the food goes, and then the other chamber is where all the digestion happens. So then also, that's why he only has to eat about once every week, once every 2 weeks, because them also being cold-blooded, they take much longer to digest their food. So he will eat until he is satisfied, and then he'll just go lay on land. And of course, they are opportunistic, and they can actually pick up on patterns in movements and behaviors. So then he's not just laying around during that week. He's busy actually watching what's happening in his surroundings, obviously looking for his next meal.
Thanks, Nina. Nina, wonderful. Very, very interesting. Yeah, just for you, the audience to know, I was there 2 days ago, and it's wonderful to see a crocodile swimming because when I was there, they were very lazy in the sun. There's the other one. And
Correct.
I actually can't stress how big they are. I mean, these guys are enormous. Nina, I remember you talking about the scales on their backs and how they're designed so that the crocodiles can be absolutely still in the water and creep up on animals.
That is correct. Yes. So these scales on his back, yes, we can actually see that it's got a very funny cone-like shape. That is because just underneath those scales, he's got a special bone called the osteoderm bone. So that bone paired with how his tail is formed, kind of like a fin-like form, those two work together to break trails and pools on the surface of the water, which us or other animals would usually leave. So when they are swimming, they leave absolutely no trace of themselves on the surface of the water, which, yes, then makes him quite creepily stealthy. And then also, of course, it's very difficult to see him because he leaves no trace, but also he camouflages very well. So they are a naturally dark bronze color. They do also prefer to live in the dirtier, murkier waters, which of course then allows him that we can't really see him. He submerges his whole body under the water, and even the fact he looks like he's got two little horns just above his eyes, that gives his head a certain shape, which allows just his eyes and his nostrils to stick out on the surface of the water. So then, of course, you won't think initially that is a crocodile laying there. You'll think it's maybe a twig or a piece of wood floating there. And even when they are laying on land, they camouflage very well. Of course, the darker they are to the sand and the muddiness, but also if they are dried out and lay in the sun for quite a while, they become dried out, and they also get a form of a sunburn. However, they don't get darker like we do. They get lighter to the point where he starts looking like rocks. And then, of course, that is the reality you will come face to face with, because you won't think, again, that is a crocodile laying there. Also, the fact that he has the ability to lay so completely still, of course, you will think it's a rock. And so you'll pay him no mind because you won't be able to see him.
Sure. Nina, I'm very fascinated. I want to ask you a question about their reproduction.
Yes.
And whether, because I've heard that when there's a nest of crocodile eggs, that depending on the temperature, the external temperature, it determines whether they mostly are male or female. Is that correct?
That is 100% correct. Yes. So unfortunately, we do not have any females here by us in the enclosure. However, they do deserve to be mentioned. So the females, they grow to be about 30% smaller than the males. And just a few interesting facts on the reproduction. It would be a bit of a space issue if we were to get some females in. So per male needs about 4 to 5 females to mate with at a time. Per male can mate with up to 10 females at a time. And then also the females, they lay anything between 25 to 80 eggs at a time. And then the females, they dig a nest close to the waters where they live, and then they lay their eggs, anything between 25 to 80 eggs. And yes, that is correct. During the incubation period, which lasts about 90 days, the heat of the soil is what determines the gender of the crocodile. with about between the temperatures of 28 to 31 degrees Celsius will result in the females. So the lower temperatures, you'll get the females, and then anything from 31 degrees and upwards will result then in the male crocodile.
Wow, okay. I've heard that the same is actually true for chickens, that if you've got fewer eggs in a clutch of a nest of eggs, then you will have more, which one is it? Females, I think, if there's fewer eggs. I might be wrong. Oh, no, it's the other way around. It's if it's cooler, then you get more females.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. The lower temperatures would then be the females. And then
Yes.
also quite a worthy mention is actually how caring for such a ferocious animal, and it's not common amongst, it's actually quite rare amongst reptiles, how caring the crocodiles are when it comes to their hatchlings. So they take very good care of their nests. They guard their nests with a lot of ferociousness and aggressiveness. And then when it comes to the time where the eggs need to hatch, the males as well as the females, they'll actually roll the eggs into their mouths to help with the hatching process. And then also after the little baby crocs have been born, the parents will also guard them and look after them for quite a few months to then, of course, ensure their safety and their survival.
It's incredible. One doesn't usually think of reptiles as being such amazing parents.
That's why it's quite rare, which makes them
Nina,
we've
got a few questions in the chat for you. Can I go ahead?
Okay. Awesome. Go ahead.
Right. So, my colleague actually, Maurette, she was just asking me whether those two male crocodiles in that space actually fight at all.
They do not fight at all. So Scarface is our alpha male, and they do have a hierarchy which is respected. So originally we did start Africanos with 5 crocodiles. However, to eliminate the fighting and the dominance, they are very dominant territorial animals. So it didn't necessarily work out. There was a lot of growling and a lot of snapping at each other. So in order to eliminate that from happening, we've only got the 2 left. And now it's actually they live in quite harmony. They've got a harmonious bond, and it gets respected.
Okay, amazing. So I've got 2 questions from Kagiso Rapella. Is it true that crocodiles occasionally eat rocks to help them stay submerged underwater for longer?
That is 100% correct. So yes, they will sometimes swallow stones and smaller rocks. It helps them with their digestion, but it also helps them, yes, to stay submerged under the water, and it also helps them with balance in the water. So yes, that is 100% correct.
Gosh, that's amazing. I had no idea. Okay. What would likely be the cause of death of crocodiles that are kept in captivity?
So there's actually quite a few. So of course, if they so stress could be one thing. If it's overcrowded, they don't like that, and also the stress and the agitation will of course also cause them to fight and attack each other. And then again, when they do bite each other, it's not just a little scratch, it's quite a wound. So they are prone to infections, which could be cause of death. Obesity could also in captivity is quite common, of course, because the enclosures are smaller and it's very difficult to get these guys to actually exercise, and we do feed them. So obesity could cause a lot of stress on the joints, and also, yes, so that could also lead to, unfortunately, them passing away. And then also if they are not fed well, and then of course also temperatures could be a thing. In captivity, temperatures are not a problem. Usually the farms and the enclosures have things like UV lights in order to heat them up during winter times when it is cold. But out in the wild, that is also quite a factor why not all of the eggs always hatch properly, because the temperatures are just too cold for them to survive.
Okay. Nina, yeah, people are really fascinated. I've got still more questions.
All good. No problem.
Okay, perfect. So Mike Matale has sent me 3 questions. Or no, wait, one is not a question. No, they're all questions. Very exciting. So one of them is that he's heard that crocodile's bile is very dangerous to humans when it is exposed to drinking water. Is that true? Gosh.
I can imagine because of the stomach acids that could come out. So I can imagine, yes, I don't think any bile is it would be healthy healthy for humans, especially when it's exposed to our drinking water. So yes, that is true.
Okay, wow, you're a real crocodile expert. I'm very impressed.
I try.
Okay. Do you also deworm crocodiles, or do they, or are they affected with worms like other animals are?
That is a very good question. Deworming, I do not believe that worming would or worms would be a problem for crocodiles. Of course, we do try to keep the meat as fresh as well, which of course is where the worms would be coming from. So if the farms and things do their job, I'm sure that the meat will be clean and won't affect these guys and give them worms. But maybe I do believe the vet would be, I've never heard of deworming, so I do apologize for not being able to give some clarification on the deworming, but I'm sure the vet would know a little bit more on the medical aspects or the medical upkeep of the crocodiles.
Okay. I would like to go again to my colleague Maret. Very interesting question. She says, has a study been done on the effects of climate change causing more males to be born than females?
Yes. So they do so mating seasons do coincide with the drier, hotter seasons, of course. And yes, the climate change does definitely or has had an effect, quite a clear effect on more males being born, of course, with the earth heating up. So yes.
Big implications. I'm going to go to Grandy Ziambo. How true is it that crocodile's blood has some antimicrobial properties?
I think that that word would be a bit better for the vet to answer as well.
Okay, we'll come back to that. Yes, cool. We'll come back to that with Chris. Um, Isaac Toluca says, what advice or facts can you give that can help someone survive when he or she has been attacked by a crocodile?
That is a very, very good question. So yes, of course, they do the death roll, which is quite scary. So they can do the death roll on land, but they prefer to do it in the water, of course, where he is the stronger, more dominant animal. So the death roll paired with that lovely biting force of his, so they don't chew their food. So with the death roll, with that momentum that they get, he is tearing his prey into smaller pieces, which he will then swallow bit by bit. So if you do find yourself in a death roll, stay as calm as possible and literally roll with him. I know it sounds quite scary, but yes, literally roll with him, and then also try very hard to find his eyes and poke him in the eyes. That will definitely put him off, and hopefully he will go away.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, to actually maintain your composure to do that is quite a talent.
Because the whole point of a death roll is as well, yes, number one, to tear you into smaller pieces, but he wants you to be distressed, because if you are going to fight against it and you are in a distressed state, he's going to drown you faster, which is exactly what he wants. Being the lazy animal that he is, he wants to work as little as possible for his food.
I have a question about crocodile meat.
Okay, all good.
Apparently, crocodile meat comes from the tail and the tail only. Is it true? And why is that? And he says, P.S., this is Mike Matale, P.S., crocodile meat is arguably one of the best, right under pork.
Ooh. Well, I cannot agree or disagree on that. Unfortunately, I myself have never had crocodile meat, and I don't think I can find it within my heart after working with these guys for such a long time get the to be able to eat, I'll have a guilty conscience. And yes, it is correct, but the majority of the, or yes, I would say about literally 99.99% of the meat comes from the tail. So the tail, yes, it is where they store a lot of the fat, but it also because they use that tail so much, because not only do they use it for the swimming strength, but they also do use it to fight. So there is a lot of muscle, which of course is where the meat comes from the muscle. So yes, there is, but I don't think that all of the meat comes from the tail. I'm sure there's a few other limbs and parts where you can get some meat, but the majority of the meat comes from the tail.
Okay, very interesting. Nina, another question. You've got a lot of enthusiasm on this side. How do you approach a crocodile when you want to administer anesthesia? I can't pronounce that. Drugs as a veterinarian. Yeah, maybe you or Chris can answer that question. Anesthesia.
Anesthesia. So I can give quick, I also do not know much about that. So what you can do is, of course, you can tranquilize him. You can shoot him with a tranquilizing gun. Obviously, that would be the best. Otherwise, what you can do is you can approach a crocodile from the back, because they only have a 270-degree vision field. So you can approach him from the back, and you are, as a human, you are strong enough with your bare hands to be able to close his mouth. Of course, or keep his mouth closed, because their mouths are meant for closing, not necessarily for opening. So you can hold his mouth closed with your bare hands, and of course, make sure someone is waiting with some tape or something to ensure that that mouth stays closed. And then from there on, you do your business to administer him.
You know, I've really loved this session. Thank you so much. And I think it's been amazing also seeing the crocodiles. I think we're almost ready. I haven't got more questions. So I think we're ready to, oh, wait a minute, before I go on, I've just got one that's popped up. It might be a question. Nile crocodiles actually also get worms and should be dewormed. It is believed that the abdominal fat of the crocodile has some antimicrobial properties, hence the reason croc oil is used to treat some ailments. The antimicrobial properties in croc blood might also explain why crocs heal faster, even after getting severe bite wounds. Do you want to comment on that, Nina?
No, I've actually got no comments. I know the oils that are extracted from the fat, from their fat, has a lot of healing properties. It's good for joint pains. It's got cell regeneration properties. It's got a lot of antibacterial properties, a lot of vitamins. So I know it's definitely very, very good for us, and I'm sure it treats quite a few ailments. So I do appreciate and thank you for the comment, and I will definitely be doing also some more research regarding the more medical side of the crocodile. I might even become a crocodile vet one day. You never know.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've got a comment from Chris, and that is very good because we're going to move on to Chris next. So Fantastic. He says this is correct. The antimicrobial properties. He says it has a nickname called crococillin.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Chris.
Okay, cool. So if anybody wants to visit Nina at Africanus, we're here in the Western Cape near the tip of Africa. So yeah, I'm sure that Nina will be there to show you more about the crocodiles if you make your way down there from Malawi. Can we see Nina's face one more time?
There we go.
Bye, guys. And bye.
Thanks,
Thank
Nina.
you for the questions and for being so enthusiastic about the crocodiles. I really appreciate it. It warms my heart.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Nina.